On the evening of 14th November 2017, a facet of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces congregated around Harare, the capital of Zimbabwe, and proceeded to take control of the Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation and vital areas of the city. The following day, the ZDF issued a statement stating that it was not a coup, but rather what they termed to be a military-assisted transition, and also that the President Robert Mugabe was safe. At the advent of Zimbabwe's independence, Robert Mugabe was universally viewed as a national hero and liberator from the oppressive Rhodesian regime. However, as time progressed, this sentiment gradually changed, and he was seen as a dictatorial despot. Wondering how this happened? Well, let's get into it. Robert Gabriel Mugabe was born on the 21st of February 1924 in the then colony of Southern Rhodesia to Gabriel and Bona Mugabe. He was born in a household that consisted of 6 children, with him being the third born. His father was a carpenter while his mother was a Christian catechist for the children in his village. Mugabe had a melancholic childhood as 2 of his brothers passed away and his father deserted the family. Despite facing these adversities, Mugabe adopted a vociferous and diligent attitude towards his studies. He became a Jesuit Catholic and was enrolled in a Jesuit school where he excelled. He was described during his school years as a discreet and lone child who preferred to read rather than engage with his peers. While enrolled at a Catholic mission school, Mugabe developed a close relationship with an Irish priest known as Father O'Hare, who ignited a spark of nationalism in Mugabe and taught him about the Irish War of Independence against Great Britain. Well, after completing his elementary education, Mugabe enrolled in a teaching course at Kutama College, which was sponsored by Father O'Hare. After attaining his teaching diploma, Mugabe took up teaching for a while, after which he obtained a scholarship to the University of Fort Hare in South Africa. While in South Africa, Mugabe got involved in political activism for the first time, which culminated in him joining the African National Congress Youth League, and he also encountered multiple Jewish South African communists who exposed him to Marxist-Leninism ideals. Mugabe subsequently graduated Fort Hare in 1952 with a Bachelor of Arts degree in History and English Literature. Mugabe would later remark that this was a pivotal moment in his life. Later that year, Mugabe returned to Southern Rhodesia, where he would become conscious regarding the stark reality of the racially oppressive system that existed in the country. Natives in Southern Rhodesia at that time were subjected to draconian laws, most notably the Land Apportionment Act of 1930, which segregated native and white settler lands, with the whites getting the superior land and natives getting the inferior land, and additionally the Native Husbandry Act, which limited the amount of livestock a native could own. In 1955, Mugabe took up a teaching job for 3 years in Northern Rhodesia, now Zambia, where he was hosted by the family of current Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa. And in 1958, he made the decision to move to the newly independent Ghana, which proved to be a very significant decision as he would become exposed to ideals and revolutionary zeal of Kwame Nkrumah, who was the president of Ghana and a symbol of African liberation. During Mugabe's time in Ghana, he met a fellow teacher named Sally Heffron, who would later become his wife and was described to be his confidant and only real friend. The two also shared political sentiments. Mugabe later stated that Ghana was where he truly embraced Marxism. Meanwhile, back in Southern Rhodesia, political agitation for independence had already begun, with a prominent political activist known as Joshua Nkomo, forming the National Democratic Party, which sought to end white minority rule in the country. In May 1960, Mugabe returned to the country with his new wife, Sally. The couple initially planned for a brief visit, but they were convinced to stay. 2 months after Mugabe's return to the country, he got involved in a protest that was led by the NDP party. During the protests, Mugabe got an opportunity to speak to the crowd. After the protest, Mugabe decided to fully commit himself to political activism. Soon after, he chaired the first NDP Congress, where he was aided by a fellow activist called Herbert Chitepo. In 1961, the British held a conference in the then Rhodesian capital of Salisbury, now known as Harare, to determine the future of the colony. Joshua Nkomo led a NDP delegation at the conference, where he hoped that the British would support the creation of an independent state governed by the black majority. Representatives of the country's white minority opposed this proposal and advocated for the perpetuation of white minority rule. Following negotiations, Nkomo agreed to a compromise which would see the black population have 15 of the total 65 seats in the country's parliament. Mugabe and other top NDP members were furious at this compromise. Following the conference, the independence movement would become impaired, as the party would be banned in December 1961. After the NDP's banning, Nkomo and other independence activists swiftly reorganized themselves into a new movement known as the Zimbabwe African People's Union, also known as ZAPU, with Mugabe appointed as the General Secretary of the organization. Racial tensions in the country grew, with central blacks targeting the white community. Mugabe deemed that it was a necessary strategy to end British colonial rule and attain independence, which conflicted with Nkomo's diplomatic and reticent stance. 9 months after its inception, ZAPU was also banned by the government. Mugabe and other senior party officials were subsequently apprehended in September 1962 and confined to their residences. Mugabe's wife was also in trouble with the law after making subversive utterances. The rise in black nationalism evoked a radical reaction by the white community, who elected a right-wing party known as the Rhodesian Front in December 1962. The new government sought to prevent black majority rule and establish an independent state governed by its white minority. Meanwhile, Mugabe began to advocate for armed struggle against the government by arguing that merely demonstrating was not adequate to bring about independence and black majority rule in the country, and he also rejected Nkomo's proposal to establish a government in exile in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Shortly after these discussions, he and other ZAPU leaders fled to Tanzania, where they met Tanzanian President Julius Nyerere, who also dismissed the idea of establishing a government in exile and countered with a suggestion to organize a resistance to white minority rule in southern Rhodesia. Shortly after, Mugabe and his wife sired a son and agreed that she go back to Ghana with a newborn son while he returned to southern Rhodesia. Meanwhile, divisions in ZAPU had arisen, which culminated in a factional split and the creation of the Zimbabwe African National Union, which was led by Damba Ningi Sithole. Shortly after the formation of ZANU, Mugabe was arrested on charges of sedition and incarcerated. During his incarceration, his son died in Ghana, and his request to attend the funeral was denied. Despite this, Mugabe was resilient in the face of adversity and managed to obtain multiple degrees, which included a master in economics, a bachelor in administration, and 2 law degrees. While imprisoned, the Rhodesian government banned ZAPU and ZANU again and also arrested all other leaders of the country's independence movement. In 1965, the Rhodesian government, led by Prime Minister Ian Smith, declared unilateral independence from Britain, which was met with sanctions from the UN and Britain. In 1972, the two liberation movements of ZAPU and ZANU launched an armed struggle against Smith's regime. ZAPU's armed wing was known as the Zimbabwe People's Revolutionary Army, while ZANU's armed wing was known as the Zimbabwe African Liberation Army. By this time, Mugabe had ousted Sithole as leader of ZANU after he had adopted a conciliatory stance and condemned ZANU's radicalism. After 10 years of imprisonment, Mugabe was released and he subsequently fled the country to Mozambique, where he joined the armed wing of ZANU, ZANLA. Initially, Mugabe was confined to a city called Quilimane due to distrust from President Samora Machel, but was later permitted to go and visit ZANLA camps. During his early years as ZANU leader, he failed to get the full support of the armed wing of the movement and even had top military commanders imprisoned. Mugabe generally remained aloof with military operations, which he entrusted to military commander Josiah Tongongara. In January 1976, ZANLA launched its first major infiltration from Mozambique, with nearly 1,000 guerrillas crossing the border to attack white-owned farms and stores. In response, Smith's government enlisted all men under the age of 35, expanding the Rhodesian army by 50%. ZANLA's attacks forced large numbers of white landowners to abandon the farms. The now unemployed black workers joined ZANLA by the thousands. By 1979, ZANLA were in a position to attack a number of Rhodesian cities. Over the course of the war, at least 30,000 people were killed. As a proportion of the wider population, the whites had a higher number of fatalities, and by the latter part of the decade, the guerrillas were winning. Mugabe placed a focus on propaganda as he made frequent speeches and broadcasts where he portrayed himself as a Marxist-Leninist revolutionary and spoke glowingly of socialist leaders such as Fidel Castro, Joseph Stalin, and Vladimir Lenin. In spite of Marxist leanings, he never managed to garner the support of the Soviet Union, who had adopted support for Mugabe's rival, Joshua Nkomo. Therefore, Mugabe turned to the People's Republic of China, which adopted its support of ZANU and supplied it with arms. Mugabe exhorted for the deposing of the white minority Rhodesian government, the execution of Prime Minister Ian Smith, the expropriation of white-owned land, and the establishment of a one-party Marxist-Leninist state in Rhodesia. He repeatedly called for violence against the country's white minority, referring to white Rhodesians as blood-sucking exploiters, sadistic killers, and hardcore racists. In one typical example taken from a 1978 radio address, Mugabe declared, "Let us hammer the white man to defeat. Let us blow up his citadel. Let us give him no time to rest. Let us chase him in every corner. Let us rid our home of this settler vermin." For Mugabe, armed struggle was an essential part of the establishment of a new state. In contrast to other black nationalist leaders like Nkomo, Mugabe opposed a negotiated settlement with Smith's government. In October 1976, ZANU nevertheless established a joint platform with ZAPU known as the Patriotic Front. In September 1978, Mugabe met with Nkomo in Lusaka. He was angry with the latter's secret attempt to negotiate with Smith. The pendulum towards independence finally swung when South African Prime Minister John Vorster concluded that white minority rule could not be sustained in Rhodesia, as the white population was severely outnumbered by the black population. Smith finally conceded under pressure from Vorster and called for election in 1979, where a black moderate bishop known as Bishop Muzorewa emerged as a victor, and the country became known as Zimbabwe, Rhodesia. However, despite this, the election was boycotted by ZANU and ZAPU, and the country still lacked international recognition. At the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in 1979, held in Lusaka, the British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher surprised delegates by announcing that the UK would officially recognize the country's independence if it transitioned to democratic majority rule. The negotiations took place at Lancaster House in London and were led by the Conservative Party politician Peter Carrington. Mugabe refused to attend these London peace talks, opposing the idea of a negotiated rather than military solution to the Rhodesian War. Machel insisted that he must, threatening to end Mozambican support for the ZANU-PF if he did not. Mugabe arrived in London in September 1979. There, he and Nkomo presented themselves as part of the Patriotic Front, but established separate headquarters in the city. At the conference, the pair were divided in their attitude. Nkomo wanted to present himself as a moderate, while Mugabe played up to his image as a Marxist revolutionary, with Carrington exploiting this division. Throughout the negotiations, Mugabe did not trust the British and believed that they were manipulating events to their own advantage. The ensuing Lancaster House agreement called for all participants in the Rhodesian Bush War to agree to a ceasefire, with the British governor Christopher Soames arriving in Rhodesia to oversee an election in which the various factions could compete as political parties. It outlined a plan for a transition to formal independence as a sovereign republic under black majority rule, also maintaining that Rhodesia would be renamed to Zimbabwe, a name adopted from the Iron Age archaeologists' site of Great Zimbabwe. The agreement also ensured that the country's white minority retained many of its economic and political privileges, with 20 seats to be reserved for whites in the new parliament. By insisting on the need for a democratic black majority government, Carrington was able to convince Mugabe to compromise on the other main issue of the conference, that of land ownership. Mugabe agreed to the protection of the white community's privately owned property on the condition that the UK and US governments provide financial assistance, allowing the Zimbabwean government to purchase much land for redistribution among blacks. Mugabe was opposed to the idea of a ceasefire, but under pressure from Machel he agreed to it. Mugabe signed the agreement but felt cheated, remaining disappointed that he had never achieved a military victory over the Rhodesian forces. In January 1980, Mugabe returned to Salisbury, Rhodesia, where he was met with a jubilant crowd who welcomed him back. During the election campaigns, Mugabe refrained from using any Marxist rhetoric as he heeded a warning from Mozambican President Samora Machel, who warned him not to alienate the country's white population in order to avoid a mass exodus of whites which would impair Zimbabwe's economy. Mugabe also resisted attempts to consolidate ZANU and ZAPU, insisting that ZANU would contest in the elections independently. Predictions were made that ZANU-PF would win the election on the basis of the country's ethnic divisions. Mugabe was Shona, a community that made up around 70% of the country's population, while Nkomo was Ndebele, a tribal group who made up only around 20%. For many in the white community and in the British government, this outcome was a terrifying prospect due to Mugabe's avowed Marxist beliefs and the inflammatory comments that he had made about whites during the guerrilla war. During the campaign, Mugabe survived 2 assassination attempts. In the first, which took place on 6th February, a grenade was thrown at his Mount Pleasant home, where it exploded against a garden wall. In the second, on 10th February, a roadside bomb was exploded near his motorcade as he left a Fort Victoria rally. Mugabe himself was unharmed. Mugabe accused the Rhodesian security forces of being responsible for these attacks. In an attempt to quell the possibility that Rhodesia's security forces would launch a coup to prevent the election, Mugabe met with Peter Waltz, the commander of Rhodesia's armed forces, and asked him to remain in his position in the event of a ZANU-PF victory. At the time, Waltz refused. The electoral campaign was marred by widespread voter intimidation, perpetrated by Nkomo Zapu, Muzorewa's United African National Council, and Mugabe's ZANU-PF. Commenting on ZANU-PF's activities in Eastern Rhodesia, Nkomo complained that the word intimidation is mild. People are being terrorized. It is terror. Reacting to ZANU-PF's acts of voter intimidation, Mugabe was called before Somes at Government House. Mugabe regarded the meeting as a British attempt to thwart his electoral campaign. Under the terms of the negotiation, Somes had the power to disqualify any political party guilty of voter intimidation. Rhodesia Security Services, Nkomo, Muzorewa, and some of his own advisors all called on Somes to disqualify ZANU-PF. After deliberation, Somes disagreed, believing that ZANU-PF was sure to win the election and that disqualifying them would wreck any chance of an orderly transition of power. In the February election, ZANU-PF secured 63% of the national vote, gaining 57 of the 80 parliamentary seats allocated for black parties and providing them with an absolute majority. ZAPU had gained 20 seats and UNC had 3. Mugabe was elected MP for Salisbury's constituency of Highfield. Attempting to calm panic and prevent white flight, Mugabe appeared on television and called for national unity, stability, and law and order, insisting that the pensions of white civil servants would be guaranteed and that private property would be protected. On 18th of April 1980, the country gained independence and its name was changed from Rhodesia to Zimbabwe. At the advent of independence, the country was greatly endowed with enormous potential, but soon after, the nation would gradually descend into chaos, tyranny, and complete economic capitulation, which we will delve into in the next part of this series. Thank you for watching. This was African Icons, and if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe.